Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. We will wait just a few moments for everyone to join the session. Seems like we have people joining from all over the country today, which is wonderful to see. We'll get started in just a moment. Well, welcome everyone to today's Charity Village webinar. My name is Charlie, and I am the graphic designer and marketing coordinator here with Charity Village. As we are gathering here on a virtual platform, it is important to acknowledge that each of us is joining this webinar from the ancestral or unceded lands of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. For those of you who may be joining a Charity Village webinar for the first time, Charity Village is Canada's largest online job board for the nonprofit sector. In addition to our online job board, organizations can also post volunteer positions. So if you're looking for work or to recruit talent in the sector, Charity Village is a great place to start. We also have a ton of excellent resources for nonprofit professionals, including online courses, articles, fundraising tools, and free webinars like the ones we are presenting today. Before we start today's webinar, I would like to quickly run through some housekeeping items. You may have noticed that when you join the webinar, you are automatically placed on mute. Since we have hundreds of participants in today's session, it is important for us to minimize the amount of background noise so that everyone can clearly hear the presentation. But you can still ask questions and make comments using the question box at the bottom of the Zoom control panel, so look for that at the bottom of your screen. You can also email any questions you may have to webinars@charityvillage.com. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit them as you think of them, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. Given the volume of questions that we receive, we invite you to include your email address along with your question. That way, if we do not get to your question, the Sage team will be able to reach out to you directly to answer the question after the session. If you happen to encounter any technical issues with the webinar, please let us know in the question box or by sending us an email. We will do our best to get any technical difficulties resolved as quickly as possible. But in a worst case scenario, please remember that we are recording today's webinar and we will send you the full recording by email tomorrow. So if you get called away or disconnected, you'll still be able to view the full presentation. And without further ado, I would like to welcome our presenters, Catherine and Maria from Sage. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Charlie. My name is Catherine Bandanieta, and I lead our nonprofits business at Sage. I've worked in finance, audit, and tech for over a decade and a half in the big four accounting firms, aviation, and Amazon, where I led the analytics and machine learning efforts to build their tax calculation engine. Throughout my childhood and career, nonprofits have always played a major role in my life, having volunteered across various countries and consulted for global NGOs. I've landed on the perfect balance now at Sage, helping nonprofits choose the best technology for their mission. Joining me today is my wonderful counterpart, Maria, who, as a solutions consultant, tirelessly helps our customers at Sage navigate the technical landscape of their software needs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Temelkovsky. I'm a senior solutions consultant for Sage Intacct, focusing on our nonprofit vertical. I've been at Sage for 9 years, and I enjoy working with our nonprofits across Canada and volunteering with Sage Foundation. So really my role is to help nonprofits evaluate Sage Intacct as their new accounting software, as their old solution is no longer meeting their needs. So everything from accounting, payroll and HR, budgeting and planning, automating their financial processes, third-party integrations, and of course, AI.
Great. So I would also like to begin by acknowledging that we are delivering this webinar today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. These lands have been cared for since time immemorial, and their histories, cultures, and knowledge systems remain deeply present and vital today. We recognize that colonization has caused and continues to cause harm and displacement to Indigenous peoples, and we honor their resilience, stewardship, and sovereignty. May this acknowledgement serve as a small but meaningful step toward learning, reconciliation, and building relationships in respect and reciprocity with the First Peoples of this land. Great. So we've got a fantastic conversation lined up today. oriented around all the main things that you're most curious about related to AI. We'll start off with quickly setting a foundation and addressing the complexities of AI technology. We'll then explore recent data from nonprofit leaders about how you're all feeling about AI, adopting it into your operations and your concerns in doing so. Then we'll share some examples of how AI is already being used today in practical terms, using Sage AI as our example. Finally, we'll share some practical steps to get you started, and then round out our discussion by answering some of your questions. All right, so before we dive in, we should probably first acknowledge how AI is impacting our media, culture, and businesses generally, because it's enough to make your head spin. Between the news around AI and our current political landscape in North America, it's almost impossible to make sense of it all. There's this popular concept in technology today called the hype cycle, which outlines the standard adoption and perceptions of new technology. So think about when smartphones first came about and the hype around BlackBerry, which turned out to be clunky with low adoption. This was recently updated for artificial intelligence. Cloud AI and generative AI, the two main forms covered in media today, are both considered to be in that trough of disillusionment, meaning that inflated expectations have already peaked and have fallen so fast that people like us have become fatigued and skeptical with the entire idea of it. It's at this point that people tend to reset expectations and start to think about these technologies in practical terms, ultimately rebuilding its reputation in the next few years or on more realistic scenarios. So using the smartphone example, how now we've landed on just, Apple and Android. Maria, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is how most nonprofits are feeling today?
Yeah, Catherine, I think I would agree with that. In my day-to-day working with nonprofits, I would say they are mostly not using AI. Some are leveraging it to automate some processes, but many are disillusioned by the hype. So it's a little bit of both. There's a lot of like, do we trust it? Can we verify it? Sometimes the AI content may be inaccurate, but I think, we can all agree that we love innovation for the greater good and improving our processes.
Absolutely. Well, great. This actually leads us to our first polling question. So how would you rate your level of understanding when it comes to AI? Is it novice? I've heard about AI, but have little to no understanding of how it works or is used. Beginner, I understand basic AI concepts and can recognize common applications like chatbots and recommendation systems. Intermediate, I have a working knowledge of AI principles and can explain how some AI models function or are trained. Advanced, I understand technical aspects of AI, including model architectures, training processes, and ethical considerations. Or expert, I have deep expertise in AI and can design, build, and evaluate AI systems professionally. Great, we'll give it a few seconds. Okay. Can everyone see the responses?
If they're not popping up, I can read them out for you.
Okay. I think they're still coming in, right? Or has it already?
Oh, they should be sharing now, but I can share the final results. So for novice, we had about 14%. Beginner has the most with 60%. Intermediate 22, advanced 3, expert 1.
Oh, well, I guess most of our community nonprofits have very little to no understanding of how AI truly works then, or just has a really basic understanding. And this is why we're hoping to provide you with some bite-sized fundamentals when it comes to AI and how it applies to nonprofit space today. Okay, so now that we've acknowledged the hype, and people really feel that they could use more knowledge around AI, Let's start to make sense of it all by level setting for a minute around AI terms and why it's rightfully still one of the most meaningful topics for nonprofit leaders to be thinking about. Maria, I think a good place for us to start might be distinguishing what we're talking about with AI these days.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. Definitely, this is a helpful place for us to start because much of that news you mentioned earlier is really more about generative AI. But AI really comes in two main forms, to make it easy. We at Sage have been using AI for many years in our technology in the form of machine learning. We can call this traditional AI for now. There are a range of technologies that fall in this bucket, but for the most part, they've all been oriented to data around analyzing large amounts of numerical data to make predictions and identify outliers. This is useful for catching anomalies. So when transactions look different than they're expected based on historical trends, this can be particularly useful with detecting coding errors, operational irregularities, or the possibility of fraud. In contrast, generative AI, which is where tools like ChatGPT fall today, I think this is where they are really making the biggest impact today around text, voice, and other forms of data using new models that are more adept to learn things in a broader way. These open up the possibilities for AI to interact with us and answer questions like never before. So you're seeing it impact a wider range of our lives. In finance, this comes into play for things like content creation, general communication, AI agents, large language models, context-specific guidance, developing forecasts and report writing, or interpretation of financial data. Honestly, this is an area that's just getting started in terms of how it can be applied.
Well, that's an important distinction, Maria. So thanks for clarifying. So basically, intelligent automation, the more traditional AI, and end user conversation, generative AI. So many of the audience may be thinking, okay, so some of the terms on that slide looked familiar. LLMs, machine learning. I'm in accounting today, and I know I need to know more about AI. Do I need to understand all of these terms? Well, truthfully, I think it's good to understand some of them. Yes, it'll help you cut through the clutter with the barrage of articles circulating about the AI revolution. But for most of us, we don't need to get lost in the underlying technological terms. There are technical leaders in your organization that probably should understand AI terms at a deeper level. But what's going to be important for finance is to understand how AI is going to show up in your organizational processes. And with the pace of change that's underway, that's going to be enough to keep you busy. So the questions that you should be considering are, where is AI being applied that can impact me most positively? What privacy and ethical principles do I need to take into account? And what changes and skills are required to take advantage? Would you agree, Maria?
Yes, absolutely. I would agree. It's really about asking, which areas can AI help me in so that I can be more efficient and more strategic. All right, so let's unpack this as it really drives how our listeners should, be thinking about AI. So there's complex technologies involved in AI. In the case of generative AI today, much of the new technology is being applied to large foundational models that are fueling the software of the big players like Google, ChatGPT, Microsoft. These foundation models are at the forefront of learning and are influencing other models to be developed. But in both cases, these models are showing up for all of us in two ways. One, through the main consumer apps like ChatGPT, Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, and then within your existing technology stack, such as your accounting or CRM, to help you get greater insights, automate your financial close, and continuous assurance with trust in AI. Generative AI accelerates and humanizes our tech strategy. These two ways to consume AI can be quite different, but in both cases, We want to be smart about where we intersect with these interfaces. Where should I be adopting this? How can it help me, and where can it help me most? What are the implications of that, and what else do I need to do? Sorry, what else do I need to learn to take advantage?
And that's exactly it. Thanks, Maria. And I know that in a bit, we're actually going to look at some specific examples of like within the Sage Intact application, like how this applies. Okay, but for now, let's hit polling question number 2. So are you using any generative AI tools such as ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot in your day-to-day work today? Wait a few seconds for everyone to answer. Very curious. Oh, wow. Okay. So 2/3 of you have answered yes, with 36% answering no. Well, that's actually really good to see. So let's then take some time now to understand how all of you are feeling about AI today. And for this, we'll actually use some insights from our 2025 Nonprofit Tech Impact Report, where we asked over 150 nonprofit finance and executive leaders across Canada about how they're viewing AI in a few key areas. Okay, so the first thing that was clear in our survey was that there's an obvious opportunity for AI to have an impact. We've asked organizations for 3 years straight what their top internal operational challenges are. And sadly, the responses haven't really changed much during that time. As many respondents in our 2025 survey are struggling with manual processes, as there were in our first report. There are lots of potential reasons for this, which we will not have time to cover today. But regardless of the reason, traditional technology clearly isn't cutting it. It's not been able to really streamline nonprofit processes at scale. Couple this with the fact that the top 2 challenges facing nonprofit offices today are funding and staffing. Yes, so recruiting, hiring, retaining human talent that can actually make a difference on your team has become one of the most pressing external challenges for nonprofit finance teams, other than the obvious funding. And it's harder than ever to improve productivity with human talent. And this really leaves the door open for technology to make an impact. So the opportunity is there, but where does AI stand among nonprofits? Today, about 26% of organizations are actively exploring AI. 28% are in the early stages of adopting, and only 10% believe that they have adopted significantly. So that leaves another 36% who aren't actively thinking about AI at all. So that's 31% not considering and 5% not sure. This is actually a very low adoption considering the hype and AI's availability. But surprisingly, we're actually ahead of the US in terms of nonprofit AI adoption. But there's 2 things to call out here that we noticed as a technology provider. Many organizations may be actually using AI and don't even realize it, as it's sometimes embedded in your software without being obvious. And then 2, these adoption rates are strikingly, lower than other research Sage has done across other industries, because in our latest Secrets of Successful CEOs report, 91% of respondents who identified themselves as being successful, and that's across all industries, both for and nonprofit industries, have embraced AI. They've actively adopted it. So we have one more data point around the disconnect that's occurring today between the promise and reality of AI. And that's where it actually sits among overall nonprofit priorities. We asked our survey participants to rank a list of top focus areas for their technology agenda in 2025. And among these, AI actually ranked last. So yeah, I don't know, Maria, if you have any comments around these findings.
Yeah, Catherine, I think this one was interesting to me. The answer was, kind of obvious and connects back to your intro slides, which is that people are a bit fatigued with the AI futurism and, this talk and hype. It's clear in nonprofits that they don't just want AI for AI's sake, right? Which is kind of how this question was structured. They want to see it impact their priorities. So, I think kind of the better question to ask is, where do you want AI to impact in your processes, right? Because really it's going to have a role in all of them.
Yep. And I guess, that's what we've been saying all along. So how is AI really showing up today then in nonprofit finance? Let's dive into more concrete examples of how it's already in use. And we'll do this across two main buckets that we discussed earlier via popular conversational chat interfaces and with the embedded AI that's influencing more focused finance applications using Sage Intacct as our example. Okay, so I know everyone's going to hate me for popping up this huge list, but there's so many unique ways in which finance teams are using conversation AI right now. And I wanted to provide a bunch of examples for those who are not, to kind of get, your creative juices flowing. So on the right, I've shown example prompts for these types of use cases. As expected, within tools like ChatGPT, text-based communication assistance tops our list. So for finance leaders, the draft summary narratives of financial analysis, reports, and grant packages is probably the top use case in play today. These, of course, are being edited by real humans in detail before sharing, particularly for board or funder audiences. But AI can be a fantastic place to start writing these narratives, and it's a huge time saver. Another is following standards and regulations, because let's face it, who can keep up with all the changes these days? It's just important when using it to get the latest legislation or compliance requirements that you're ensuring AI is citing the author and time frame of the content. So we won't have time to go through all of these, but in most all cases, AI is providing either online reference information quickly, much in the way we used to use search, basically for research, or it's providing a starting point for your work. This is key. And it's how I'm actually using conversational AI these days myself. For example, this list came from ChatGPT, but mapped to my own research and customer discussion. The thing to remember with AI is fact checking and experimenting with the right prompts to make sure that the responses are as credible as possible and tailored to your needs. Maria, how are you using conversational AI today? Are you hearing anything about it?
Yeah, I think there are some great examples there on the screen. In my day-to-day, I would say I use ChatGPT to help me with summarizing documents. Oftentimes, if there's a long RFP sent over, I kind of want the key highlights before reading through it in full. Using AI to provide me with the key topics discussed with prospects and customers on discovery calls and demos, and items that I need to follow up on, right? So AI can be a powerful tool if you know how to ask the question correctly or how to set the prompt.
Great.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about automation and month-end close. So at Sage Intacct, we're constantly innovating. Sage Intacct is really built for today and the future. So here are some examples of AI in Sage Intacct. So Sage AI can help with getting instant answers through search help, mitigating risk through our general ledger outlier detection, saving time and eliminating manual data entry with purchasing and AP automation, and boosting efficiency with Sage Intelligent Time, so that Sage Intacct helps our customers automate their processes such as month-end close. And we will be getting much more in the future, but for right now, let's take a look at each one in a bit more detail. All right, so I would say the most noticeable AI feature today, which is our own conversational AI help resource within Sage Intacct. So our Copilot search help is now fully supported by generative AI, which borrows from some of those bigger foundational models we talked about earlier. But it is also trained on our own proprietary accounting data and features. So if you are a user of our existing help tools today, what I'd say is that now, we've incorporated the latest AI into it. So you're going to notice more proactive recommendations, clearer answers, and probably get you to the helpful resources you need faster due to the more intelligent nature of the interpretation and the responses. So what's exciting is that as we get more and more interactions over time, this gets better fast, right? So the future is really with agentic tools, and we will continue to develop Sage AI within the trust framework. Have you ever, coded a journal entry incorrectly? We're all human. It happens. We need to go in, maybe make adjustments, corrections. So some of the principles that inspired outlier detection is continuous review and continuous trust, which really are, from a product perspective, all about detecting anomalies, like coding mistakes that are inevitable at some point with manual entries. Our data shows that historically about 10 to 20% of journal entries require some form of correction. And sometimes, finding and fixing these issues can be hugely taxing to the finance team. So with our general ledger outlier detection assistant, we established this idea of continuous trust by allowing the AI to augment human review of journal entries to identify possible errors before they are approved or before the journals are posted, as opposed to a manual review, right? AI can review thousands of entries in minutes. We have nonprofit customers who are analyzing huge sets of data with this feature that never could have been effectively, done with humans before. So like other forms of AI, these detections are flagged back to the submitter to review further and make any corrective actions if needed. It really learns the more that you use it. So the more entries you have, the better the AI gets with detecting anomalies for things like general ledger accounts, the dimensions or segments, the amounts, and then of course this would mitigate risk. All right, so now moving on to purchasing and AP automation. So accounts payable is one of the most time-consuming processes for finance teams today. Many of the steps are extremely manual, with as much as 53% of AP processing time associated with invoice ingestion and classification, and of course the always fun process of matching POs to invoices. So with artificial intelligence and optical character recognition, or OCR technology, AP cycle times can easily be cut in half. So with Sage Intacct today, we apply the machine learning to AP invoice processes, fully receive and input invoices into your system, code it to the proper dimensions, route it for approval, and flag for any variances between the purchase order and the vendor invoice. We also recently extended this functionality to purchasing. So it will match the scanned vendor invoice to purchase orders. You'll have your attachments. And then for transactions that do not belong in the purchasing workflow, such as utility bills, users can select, change to AP bill to move the transaction to accounts payable. So like all of our AI solutions, AP automation learns from your review process, the more that you use it, right? So when you make any edits, when you make any changes, right, it'll take those into account for future processing. So it can code things such as, for example, vendor name, date, invoice number, general ledger account, dimensions, and amounts. And again, it learns the more that you use it. So saving you time and avoiding manual data entry.
So Maria, sorry to interject here. I just really wanted to kind of touch on this point from an auditor's perspective. Back in the day when I was doing audit and having to actually, do sample selections and having to go, the point that you mentioned about matching those bloody invoices, it was so time consuming. So even from an audit perspective, for those, I'm sure everyone's very familiar with being audited, but from an auditor's perspective, testing the technology and software controls functionality is a lot less tedious than testing manual samples of invoices and POs. So even from an audit perspective, it's saving us time, and thereby saving, from an auditor's perspective, saving the client's time during the entire audit process. So I really just wanted to call that out. Because I know that I can already see a lot of questions popping up, and everyone has concerns around trust and privacy, and can we trust the data? So just from a very specific example in audit, I wanted to just let you guys know that there's definitely efficiencies in this, and there is trust in this that we can test as auditors of the system functionality and system controls. So yeah. Thanks for explaining.
Thanks. So finally, we have Sage Intelligent Time. So these are AI-powered timesheets available on a mobile app or through a web browser, which is our time assistant that suggests entries based on, calendar, email, and app activity. Like if you're spending, a certain amount of time in Excel, in PowerPoint, emailing, right? So Sage Intacct, Sage Intelligent Time makes time tracking faster and more accurate instead of manually keying in the time.
That's pretty impressive. So thank you so much for going into detail with those, Maria. I really do hope that you guys enjoyed those practical examples of how AI is working for our customers in the real world of Sage. These are just some of the quotes from them on the time-saving benefits. So yeah, it's definitely working for a lot of our customers. So now for our third polling question, because I'm curious after all of that, which piece of the AI examples just provided will you find the most beneficial? Is it search help, outlier detection, purchasing and AP automation, intelligent time, or all of the above, or none of the above? I am an AI skeptic. Okay, just a few more seconds till get the responses in. Oh, wow. I'm not sure if everyone can see the results, but we have 41% for all of the above. And then right after that, we have 20% for search help. So people are definitely most excited about being able to use conversational AI within their finance systems. And then it's followed by purchasing and AP automation, outlier detection, and intelligent time. And good to see only 7% for none of the above. So I can, only imagine how much search help can improve the experience of every single finance employee. Because if you think about it, implementing your system or changing staff, training them up, having to, ask every question to a consultant or, searching through manuals for the answer, and just being able to ask your co-pilot agent, for the answer and having that answer right away, it's going to be a game changer for sure. So yeah, but if you feel like you haven't quite launched into a new world of learning with AI, that's okay. We wanted to share some thoughts on how to get you going. So I guess as we've been kind of, talking about it quite a bit already, first, our advice is definitely to start using any of the incredible conversational AI tools that are already out there, whether it's ChatGPT or Sage AI search help for you intact customers. Just interacting with it, understanding prompts, getting a feel for how you will personally leverage it is really important in being successful in applying AI to real operational problems. As Maria has said, through all of that, the more you use it, the more it's going to understand you and your needs better as well. Then when it comes to tackling the challenges in your nonprofit, I would start by identifying specific challenges that AI could solve. So focus on repetitive tasks, consuming staff time, or areas where automation could really reduce errors. Understanding exactly what problem you're trying to solve helps ensure AI adoption delivers real, tangible, and measurable results. Lastly, I would say, consider your organization's readiness across key areas like data quality, team capacity, and infrastructure. So this helps set realistic expectations and identify any gaps to address. For many organizations, you may not want to dive into using AI for predictive analysis just yet, but rather focus on task automation. And this is really part of bringing in an honest assessment of your own organization's profile. So Maria, you've worked extensively in and with nonprofits, and now you know AI better than many. Is there anything you want to add here?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. I think, we've talked a lot about the financial automation, which I did on the previous slides. But something that I hear most often, probably maybe, the number one issue almost that nonprofits are dealing with is staffing. It's really about figuring out the pain points. Where are we having difficulty, hiring for certain roles or retaining certain roles? And so I really think that AI is going to reframe and make the day-to-day work more enjoyable, right? To both existing staff, but also to new staff that you'll be, recruiting. I'm speaking with prospects and customers day to day, and they're constantly in awe of how, AI has helped them to automate, be more efficient, and then they can focus on more strategic tasks.
Yep. All righty. Wow, we made it. So Maria, you still got a burst of energy for some questions? Because we got a lot of them.
Let's do it.
All
Yeah,
right,
we got, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Charlie,
I'll
no, help
start
us
the
out
Q&A.
here. Yeah, because we got
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many. So
Yes, for sure. So our first question we have today is, our organization isn't really using AI today, but there are some concerns about privacy. What are the top privacy concerns as it relates to finance?
wow, well, that's the number one question on so many people's minds, as we've already alluded to earlier. So basically, as AI becomes more embedded in financial operations, privacy is emerging as one of the most critical concerns for CFOs and finance leaders. So let's kind of walk through the top areas that you should probably be aware of. Firstly, I would say that data security and breach risks, the obvious one. Financial systems are handling vast amounts of sensitive data, customer records, transactions, donor information, and AI kind of introduces new vulnerabilities, especially when third-party or cloud-based models are involved. And we're talking about risks like unauthorized access, insecure data transmission between systems, and weaknesses in generative AI tools. So then, like a second one, I can, that's top of mind for me would be regulatory compliance. So AI must operate within frameworks like GDPR. And in finance, that means really strict controls on how data is processed, stored, and shared. The challenge is that AI models can be opaque, making it hard to ensure compliance or to explain decisions to regulators, which is kind of tied to, like transparency and explainability. And in finance, decisions like loan approvals or fraud detection, they must be auditable. But deep learning models can often lack clarity, making it difficult to trace how a decision was made or justify to stakeholders. And then I would say there's also, well, model training and ingestion. So AI systems need large data sets to become more accurate. And if those include proprietary or customer data, there's a risk of exposure always, especially if the data isn't properly vetted. And finally, I think we can't like not consider integration with legacy systems because that's the reality. Many financial institutions still rely on older infrastructure, which can clash with modern AI tools and compromise privacy standards. So I think there was some internal research from Sage that showed that over like I think a third, 30 something percent of finance leaders cite privacy and security as the top barrier to AI adoption. So legal teams are cautious, and some organizations have even paused generative AI use until clearer regulations are in place, which is totally fair. So while AI offers incredible potential, as we've seen, from fraud detection to forecasting, to anomaly detection, it's essential to approach implementation with a strong privacy first mindset. And for example, to give you an example of that we see in Sage very often, like complying with the rules of PIPEDA in healthcare. Ultimately, the onus is still on the user to exercise due diligence and caution in order to ensure that compliance. So I hope I gave like a good overview of, what it is that you should really be thinking about when it comes to privacy. Yeah. Maria,
Awesome.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
That's
No,
great.
go ahead. Yeah.
So
We got a lot of
for our
questions.
yeah, for the next question we have is for those of us new to using AI, how long does it take before we start to benefit from using it?
I can take this one. I think it really depends on the scenarios and what you're looking to use it for, but mostly it's going to learn from the data model that it has access to. So most of the AI that Sage Intacct customers use are based on the customer's own data set to feed back a qualified response that is accurate. So teach us and give us feedback so that we can learn from it. For example, our general ledger outlier detection feature, which I spoke about earlier, needs about 6 months of historical data to identify those outliers because it's really looking at the way that you normally code your journal entries, whether those are payroll journals, adjustment journals, etc. So it learns, from general ledger accounts, dimensions, amounts, and so forth, and then it can identify those anomalies or outliers. Whereas purchasing and AP automation, it's a lot quicker, right? It starts to learn as soon as you start feeding it AP bills. And so there was a question, in the chat that I saw, can I just use the AP bills if I'm not using purchasing? Yes, absolutely. So it really learns, as soon as you start uploading those AP bills, right? For, the vendor, right? The date, the coding, and so forth.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. On to our next question we have. Are you seeing AI replace jobs in nonprofits today?
Well, I mean, this is a question we hear often and not just amongst nonprofits, but potentially the the fear is probably a bit heightened here, I guess, in this particular industry, I would say. And I mean, the honest answer is yes, but it's not in the way that should be sparking like fear. AI is not really here, like they're not really, what's definitely not good enough to be replacing people. It's really replacing the work that people don't want to do in the first place. So if you're thinking about, the examples we mentioned earlier, the repetitive data entry, manual reconciliation, hours spent compiling reports, writing grant proposals and generating content. These are tasks that drain time and energy from already stretched teams. So AI is really stepping in to automate those processes, giving staff the breathing room to focus on actually strategic, mission critical work. So, in fact, I think many nonprofits that we've spoken with, that we've seen, are actually using the shift as an opportunity to upskill their workforce. So, as AI takes over routine, like routine tasks, organizations are investing in training their teams to interpret data, use AI tools effectively, and contribute to higher level decision making. So it's not really about job loss, it's about job evolution, I would say. I mean, all this, of course, bearing in mind, the theme that keeps coming up about privacy and regulations. Of course, I acknowledge that there's definitely still a lot of ambiguity in terms of regulation. So, regulations around AI, or even within organizations. I know that in order to actually really leverage AI, you'd want to have the right appropriate controls in place. So really, like I said earlier, that's kind of on the organization to ensure that it is in place, and helping staff transition their skills to actually take advantage of the automation and AI that's available. So really, we're really seeing AI kind of simplify routine tasks, also research and insight gathering, as mentioned. So instead of digging through spreadsheets or reports and looking for anomalous transactions, staff can ask natural language questions and get instant answers. So that's a game changer for grant writing, program evaluation, and donor engagement. So yes, I mean, AI is changing the nature of work in nonprofits and businesses all over the world. But it's doing so by elevating the human role. It's helping teams do more of the work they want to do and less of the work they have to do. And I say, that's a win for both mission and morale, because morale is definitely something, I still feel that it's not enough talked about. Staff burnout is a real issue we see in nonprofits. So yeah.
Well put, well put. All right, we have time for one more question today. How can AI be applied to impact our reporting right now?
Okay, I can take this one. I mean, there are a lot of things that, we're still in the process of exploring, and I'm really excited about where it's going. AI will allow us to generate reports in a quicker way, and in a more trusted and accurate way. So increasing our time to deliver and our accuracy. The other portion is the narrative. So being able to interpret the data, highlight and identify variances, and then what does this all mean, right? Why is it there? Calling attention to it, and then making sure we're giving you additional information that is pertinent to your reporting and decision making, and really being able to tell a story with your data.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point. And we already know that storytelling using data is a huge theme, I think, within nonprofits, and really elevating that role in finance to be able to tell the story of what the organization's mission is, how our funds are being allocated, how it's being used, and leveraging that to enable us to move forward with our donor engagement and getting more funding through fundraising. Yeah. So thanks, Maria.
Thank you both for answering those questions and for presenting such an insightful webinar. Do you both have any final comments before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, so I think at this time, well, we're going to close out the discussion, but I wanted to leave you with a few thoughts about Sage and our commitment to nonprofits and how you can follow up with us to find out more. And that being said, like I said, I know that there's a ton of questions we couldn't get to. I know I saw some things around, ethical implications as well. We will definitely be sending answers to every single one of your questions after this webinar. So Sage Intact is the leader in nonprofit financial management systems and is trusted by thousands of nonprofit organizations in the US and Canada. Sage has been widely recognized by independent third parties as the best overall solution for nonprofit needs for over 5 consecutive years. It is the first and only preferred financial management application of the AICPA in the US and has consistently allowed our nonprofit customers to spend up to 75% more time on strategic work through more efficient and automated processes.
All right. So as you know, we were going through the webinars, trying to keep going through the chat. There are a lot of questions, of course, and this one has come up a number of times. So of course I'm going to address the two main topics which always come up when we talk about AI are around trust and control, right? So at Sage Intact, we have the highest standards of security, compliance within our trust framework. So Sage AI is AI you can rely on. It is built with transparency and accuracy, and really the other one is control. So Sage Intact customers, of course, are controlling which information they're feeding into the AI, for example, like accounts payable bills, right? So that it can be coded accurately, right? How it's going to learn for the GL outlier detection, right? So the Sage AI is working for you, keeping you informed, empowered, and always in control of your data and your key decisions.
Maria, I wanted to add here that I do believe that within Sage AI, we actually demonstrate exactly which data it's reading from, where which data it's using to gather its inferences and to come up with the answer and the calculation. I think that's also available in ChatGPT and things like that, but we don't widely, I guess, use that. And I don't think many people are really aware of that. But in Sage AI, for sure, all the data is trained on proprietary data. And I do believe that, yeah, if anyone ever needed to go and see why it gave a certain answer, you'll be able to see the logic behind that.
Yeah, and I think there's a portion of it in our privacy policy too.
Exactly, of course.
All right, so as we mentioned, we work with a number of nonprofit organizations across Canada. Sage Intact supports all types of nonprofit organizations. You can see some of the many nonprofits that rely on Sage Intact to automate their processes and eliminate their business challenges. So when you work with Sage and our partners, you are choosing a provider that can bring you insights specific to your type of organization. Whether you're a place of worship, a grant-making foundation, we have experience with other organizations that share your unique financial processes because we understand that nonprofits can vary widely depending on your cause area. And this is often why we're rated, #1 nonprofit accounting software and customer satisfaction. You're on mute.
Gosh. that was bound to happen. One time at least. I'm glad it's at the end. Thank you so much for joining us today. As a bonus, we'll send you a link to our new ebook around AI and nonprofit finance in the follow-up email, and you can find it on sage.com. So at Sage, we're here to support your journey to greater mission impact, no matter what comes your way. Thanks, everyone, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. I just wanted to remind everybody that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the webinar recording. Please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. The email will also include a survey link that you can fill out with your feedback on today's webinar. You should see a survey link pop up right here in Zoom following the session as well. On behalf of Charity Village, thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you'll join us for our next free webinar, Fundraising Basics for Small Nonprofits, Using Data to Create an Effective Fundraising Strategy. You can find more information on this and all of our upcoming webinars at charityvillage.com/webinars. Thank you all again for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.